student support is certainly not one size fits all. What truly helps one student may not be beneficial for another. Strategies that one school uses may not be a good match for the culture at another institution. At SmarterServices, we get it. That is why we have a dedicated customer success manager for each client to walk alongside them and suggest good practices that fit the unique dimensions of their students. One of the tools that we equip our customer success managers with is data about successful approaches being used at various schools. Sometimes this data is shared in the form of a qualitative case study that takes an in-depth look at a challenge faced by one school and an intervention that worked for them. You can review several of these case studies on the SmarterServices website. Periodically, we also ask our clients about patterns and good practices in the way they utilize the SmarterMeasure Learning Readiness Indicator via a survey. In this blog post, I will share with you the results of our recent SmarterMeasure Usage Survey. One of the most common questions that schools who are new to the assessment ask is where and when to position the assessment. We reply that there's no right or wrong point in the student experience to position it. This survey revealed that the most common place is in an orientation course. I like positioning the assessment there because students understand that an orientation course is an effort of the school to help them succeed. When they take SmarterMeasure as an activity in the orientation course, they're likely to perceive it as a beneficial experience. Also, many schools provide a discussion board in an online course or a focus group in a local course that allows students to reflect within the community of the course about their level of readiness. The second most common position of the assessment is in an academic course. For example, schools have placed it as the first assignment in an English 101 course. After completing the assessment, students are tasked to write a one-page paper about their own level of readiness. This prompts the student to reflect on their scores and also provides an early writing sample of the student's composition skills. There was a three-way tie for third place, with admissions, advising, and first-year experience programs being equally utilized. Other places included during the recruitment process and at the time of registration. Related to the question of the timing of the assessment was one about which specific populations of students are prompted to take it. Over half, 54%, of schools responded that all incoming students are asked to take it. The second most common group was persons who are new to online learning. These two were followed by several other student populations including TRIO, Upward Bound, Provisional Academic Status, Transfer students, and graduate students. Not only are schools able to choose who they offer the assessment to and when, but they are also able to select the scales that are most relevant for their students. The 4 scales that almost all schools are offering include life factors, technical competency, learning styles, and individual attributes. After that, some schools opt out of some scales based on the needs of their students. I was encouraged to see that adoption levels of our 3 newest scales is growing rapidly. 40% of schools are now using the LMS competency scale, and about 1 in 5 schools are using the math and/or writing readiness scales. Another question was whether schools require students to take the assessment or if they make it optional. I was pleased to see that the majority, 64% of schools, do make the assessment required. While the choice is certainly up to each school, I encourage schools to position it as a requirement because if you do not, then the results are open to self-selection bias. When students have a choice about whether to take the assessment, it's often the case that some students who could benefit from it the most are the ones who opt out of taking it. Some of the elements that challenge a student in their collegiate studies, such as time management or control over procrastination, also impact their choice of whether to invest the time to complete the assessment. Conversely, we've had some clients who do not require the assessment and then use the behavioral data of the students who chose not to take it as a flag of a student who may need immediate support and encouragement. Equally important as where the assessment is positioned and who takes it is how schools respond to the assessment results. Most schools, 60%, do what we strongly encourage, and that is for someone at the institution to go over the scores one-on-one with the student. Typically, this is done by an admissions counselor, academic advisor, success coach, or faculty member. Not only does this foster a meaningful conversation with the student, but it conveys that the school is interested in the student's success, and it introduces them to someone at their school who will be there for them when needed. I was also pleased to see that 40% of schools look at the data in aggregate to determine gaps in student support services. If your school is already using SmarterMeasure and you're not sure how to run the reports that show all of the measures of central tendency across all scales and subscales, let your customer success manager know, and we'll be glad to show you how this is easily done. All learning, even online learning, happens in community. For this reason, I was glad to see that about 20% of schools discuss the results as a group in the class. This is beneficial because it often helps a student to recognize that they may not be the only person who struggles in certain areas. Because schools frequently analyze the data in aggregate, we also ask if someone at the institution was regularly exporting the data. Over half, 51% of schools, reported that they were exporting the data from the admin panel to use in further analysis. If you're not familiar with how to export the data, please reach out to your customer success manager. SmarterMeasure is now in its 20th year of usage. Across that time, over 6 million students from over 1,000 institutions have benefited from it. Also, over that time, the assessment engine that it is provided in has evolved. Unlike some other services, SmarterMeasure never charges schools for the ability to configure and customize the assessment. We ask schools about which configuration features they use the most. Over half, 54%, integrate the assessment into the LMS. This provides the assessment in a branded, intuitive interface and also achieves single sign-on and gradebook integration. Many institutions, 34%, reported that they customized the text on the student login page as well as the support links on the student report. I was pleased to see that about 1 in 3 schools added their own custom questions. While we strive to keep the assessment itself standardized to enable peer institution comparisons, we do encourage schools to add additional questions about factors that are relevant to them. We love our clients. We love working with them, and we love the collaborative culture between our clients. On the survey, we ask if they would be open to having other clients and/or prospective schools reach out to them for a conversation about the assessment and how it benefits their students. About half of them were willing to take that call. So, if you'd like to speak with some of our partner institutions about how they are fostering learner readiness and boosting retention through the use of the SmarterMeasure Learning Readiness Indicator, just let us know, and we will pair you with a similar institution for a conversation. Thank you.